Perfect. Okay, councillors, I think we will start the meeting. So I would just like to say that this is the meeting, the extraordinary meeting of the Inner West Council. I am Rochelle Porteous, the Mayor of the Inner West Council, and I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal and the Wongal people of the Eora Nation and pay our respects to their elders past and present, and to their leaders past, present and emerging, and to say that this land was never ceded and that this land was and always will be Aboriginal land. So councillors, do we have apologies for this evening?
Apologies from Councillor Byrne and Councillor York.
Okay. Do you want to move those apologies, Councillor Drury? That's seconded by Councillor Hesed. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Yep, that is unanimous. So I've just a note on webcasting. Councillors, as you know, tonight's council meeting is webcast. In the spirit of open, accessible and transparent government, this meeting of the Inner West Council is being streamlined live on council website. By speaking at a council meeting, members of the public and councillors agree to being recorded and must ensure their speech to the council is respectful and appropriate language is being used. A person who uses defamatory, discriminatory or offensive language may be exposed to liability for which council will take no responsibility. At any part of the meeting that is held during closed session will not be recorded. In fact, it is recorded for the minutes, but it is not recorded in terms of being publicly available. Councillors, is there any councillor that needs to disclose an interest in any of the items that are on the agenda this evening?
Councillor Porteous, I'll pop the same one on that I did last time for the one on the non-notice of motion on implementing the New South Wales Government's outdoor dining initiatives in the Inner West. It's because part of the resolution is printed, mentions the City of Sydney where I work.
Thanks, Councillor Lockie. We'll note that, and that is non-significant, non-pecuniary, is that correct?
One of these days I'll remember to add that, and yes.
Okay, and you'll be voting. Okay, thank you. Any other councillor that needs to disclose an interest? Okay, councillor. So we're now going to move to a moment of quiet contemplation now. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, there are no minutes to confirm, and there are no public here this evening for the public forum. There are also no condolence motions. There is one mayoral minute which has been tabled quite late today. This is an item which needs to be dealt with before we go into caretaker period. Because it's an item which needs to be dealt with in confidential session, I'm proposing that we deal with it at the end of the agenda. It's actually numbered as item 23, so without altering the order of the meeting, I'll waive my right to deal with that item now as a mayoral minute, and we can deal with that at the end of the meeting when we can go into confidential session. If by chance it's looking like we're not going to be able to finish the agenda, which I'm sure is not the case tonight, then we will deal with it before that, because obviously it needs to be dealt with this evening. So, councillors, we now move to the agenda items. And the first agenda item that we have is what is now numbered item 1.
I'll move that, Councillor Porteous, and I'll waive my right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Hester. Do I have a seconder for that?
I'll second and waive.
Thank you, Councillor Drury. Is there anybody that needs to speak to this item?
What item is it on the old agenda?
On the old agenda, it is item 11. Simpson Park.
Thank you.
If there's nobody who wants to speak to that, I'll go to Councillor Hester for a right of reply.
No need.
Okay. Councillors, I'll now put that item. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. The next item on the agenda is item 12, investment report. Do I have a mover for that?
I'll move that. I'll move
That's
that.
moved, Councillor Stamalis. Is there a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
That's seconded by Councillor Steer. Councillor Stamalis, did you need to speak to that item?
No, I'm happy with that, Madam Mayor.
Okay, and Councillor Steer, did you need to speak to that item?
No, I don't need to.
Okay, thank you. Is there any councillor that needs to speak to this item? Otherwise, I'll go to Councillor Stamalis for a right of reply. Councillor Stamalis?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Councillors, I'll now put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And I believe that's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Passos, you were in favour, is that right? I didn't see. Yes. Yes, thank you. Councillors, the next item on the agenda is item 3, which is the notice of motion management of disability parking spots. That is, sorry. It's Councillor Stamos. Councillor Stamos, so that's your motion. So you're obviously moving that motion. Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
Okay, so that's seconded by Councillor Steer. Councillor Stamalos, do you need to speak to this motion?
Oh, look, Madam Mayor, it's just briefly getting across this issue for all councillors. That's all it seeks to do, is get some information to come back to councillors. So I don't think there's any need for me to speak any further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stamalos. Councillor Steer.
No, thanks to Councillor Stamalis for bringing
Would you
this.
like to speak to this motion?
Sorry,
Thank you,
no,
Councillor Steer.
I would, please. Councillor
Councillor
Passos.
Passos, you'd like to speak to this motion?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, please go ahead, Councillor Passos.
Well, I'm glad Councillor Stamola's put this up, because this is following up. I think earlier in the piece of this term, there was supposed to be an audit. We were supposed to be told about an audit. I'd raised this a fair while ago, because I'm aware of plenty of disability parking spaces that are still signed that are no longer needed. And I'm quite perplexed on why we never got anything back. There's a lot of things that haven't been followed up. There's still one that I raised in a street in Ashfield that the person has moved away 5 years ago. And I'm aware of another one in Summer Hill. When I understand what I had to go through to get a disability parking space in Summer Hill, and how we desperately need parking spaces, there was supposed to be a report done. We were told that an audit was going to be done. So we're really going over the same thing again. This is something that's serious. This is something that council should be on top of. How many disability parking spaces are not used? And there's got to be an easier way for people to apply for them. And have the criteria been harmonised? Because when I was attempting to get the disabled parking spot for the resident in Summer Hill, it seemed we were following the guidelines of what Marrickville used to do. And it had nothing to do with what the criteria was in Ashfield. So I would like to add, have we harmonised our policy on this report that Councillor Stamalis is asking for? You might think this is an important issue, but it is. And as we're ageing, people need these spots. So if Councillor Stamoulis will accept also, I would also like to know, how have we harmonised the policy on disabled parking? It's really not up to council. It's a state issue. And why are we having 3 different policies?
Okay, Councillor Passis, would you like to ask that question to the relevant council officer? Have we
Yes.
harmonised our policy
Yes.
on disabled parking?
Yes,
So
could
we'll
I
put that
put
to
it
the
through you?
relevant council officer.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I might have a go unless Stuart. No, sorry, I'm having trouble with my video. Yeah, so I would. I recall something coming to council, but I can't confirm it. I'll give the councillors an update if you like in a briefing note. I'm pretty sure something's come in the last couple of months. I can take it on notice. I can find out. I just need a bit longer to have a look through the agenda.
Okay,
So,
thank you for that. All right. Councillor Passis, you didn't want to move any amendment there, did you?
Yes, I'd like to move that. I can't send anything through, Mayor, but I'd like to move the question I just asked is that have we harmonised the policy that we have?
Councillor Stamoulis, are you
Because
happy to add that to your motion?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, Madam Mayor, so I'm happy to accept that.
Is the minute taker, can they just add a point F, has the disabled parking policy been harmonised? Yep, perfect. So that's going to be added. Councillor Stamoulis has accepted that as a point
Thank you.
to the motion. Okay, are there any other councillors that want to speak to this motion? Otherwise, I'll go back to Councillor Stamoulis for a right of reply.
Nothing more to add, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Stamoulis. I'll now put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. The next item is item 14, notice of motion street tree planting update. Councillor Stamoulis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just very briefly again, this is seeking information about a priority program, the tree planting, particular street trees. I know that residents are very, very interested in the work that council are doing, and it'd be lovely to get some information out to them and also back to councillors about the number of street trees being planted, how we're selecting the various areas, and also there is some contention sometimes with the width of the footpaths, and it's important that our residents know a little bit more about that. But I'll leave it at that for the time being. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Stamoulis. Do we have a seconder for this?
I'll second it. And I actually had sent an amendment through which I thought Councillor Stamoulis had moved, but if the minutes taker can put that up, Councillor Stamoulis indicated he was happy to accept that.
Yes.
Okay, so that's seconded by Councillor De Cruz. Councillor De Cruz's amendment is added. Did you want to speak to that, Councillor De Cruz?
No, that's fine. It's just really putting up the satellite images of the canopy in the inner west on the website.
Thanks for that, Councillor De Cruz. Is there any other councillor that wants to speak to this item?
Yes, I'd like to, if the appropriate officers at the meeting tonight ask a few questions about complaints I'm receiving from residents. When the footpath's been broken to put the new trees in, and trees don't go in, how many times has this happened? And they've just left the footpath with a big square and the soil. People want to know, is council coming back to reinstate the footpath, or what was the reason the trees weren't put in?
Okay, I'll put that to the relevant officer.
I'll put that to the Acting Director of Infrastructure, Stuart Hull. If he can't, maybe he's not on. Oh, no, he's on. Just can't hear him. Councillors, what I might do is I'll take that on notice and bring back. The only thing I could think off the top of my head with the tree planting, Councillor Passes, would probably weather, that we try not to plant in the summer months. So if we're doing a footpath program there may be a period of time before, but I'm happy to give that an update in a briefing note. There may be a period of time before the tree goes in, because we prefer not to plant at that time of year.
Oh no, so, this is happening at the same time they're planting in the next street.
Okay,
this is happening at the same time.
I think the general manager said he'll need to take that on notice. Councillor Passos, did you have any other questions that you wanted to ask?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Passos. So I'll go now to Councillor Stamlis for a right of reply.
No, that's all good. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thanks. I'll now put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 15 has been dealt with, so we move to item 16, notice of motion, code red for humanity. That's moved by Councillor Cruz. Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second that, Councillor Porteous.
That's seconded by Councillor Hesse. Councillor Cruz, did you want to speak to this item? You're on mute, Councillor Cruz.
Thank you, Mayor. This motion has been on the papers for a month, and I think everyone's had a chance to read it. It's basically writing to the Prime Minister and the federal members, and also to the state government about taking climate change seriously and acting on it. And it's for our own community strategic plan to embed adaptation and mitigation of climate change in our own plans and strategies. So thank you. I commend that to councillors.
Thanks, Councillor Cruz. Okay, is there any councillor that wants, oh, sorry, Councillor Hesse, did you want to speak to this item?
I'll reserve.
Okay. Is there any councillor that wants to speak to this? No? Okay. I'll go back to Councillor Cruz for right of reply.
I've got nothing to add. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillors, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Macquarie, I can't see you. Yes, thank you. Councillor Drury. Yep. Okay, so I think that's all councillors are in favour, and I think Councillor Passos has left the room. So just checking there, Catherine, that should be 12 for, 0 against, and Councillor Passos is absent. Yep. Great, thank you.
That's right.
So that's carried. Thank you. Councillors, the next item on the agenda is item 17, which is my motion, the motion to establish residents' precincts committees for the Inner West Council. So I'm moving that motion. Is there a seconder for that?
I'll second that.
And that's seconded by Councillor Stamlis. Thank you, Councillor Stamlis. Look, I will, first of all, I need to change the motion because this was written back in September and it's now November. So it's no longer timely. So I have provided alternative wording to the minute taker. If you could bring the alternative wording up, please, Catherine. All right, so basically, you've got the alternative wording. I'll start to speak to it as long as you've got the wording there.
We can't see it yet, Rochelle.
No, here it is. There we are. Okay. So, councillors, first of all, I mean, obviously, we have discussed resident precincts committees previously on this term of council. I think it's really important, first of all, to establish the fact that this is resident precinct committees, while they do perform a consultative role, essentially they perform a democratic role. They are a local democracy vehicle which enables residents to meet physically face to face and to talk about council issues in their local area, because I think particularly important now because we have such an extended council where it's quite difficult for a lot of the residents to actually get to Ashfield for a council meeting, and also the opportunity to participate is limited to a 3-minute contribution. Resident committees actually provide a more informal way for people to participate and to participate in their local area, where they'll often be able to walk to the meeting and they also get a chance to obviously meet their neighbours as well. So what I want to do is establish that this is what we're talking about. So the motion I'm now putting forward notes that the resident precinct committees are committees of residents run by the residents in a defined geographical area of the LGA with the support and assistance of council. And I think it's really important as well, this element of support and assistance of council, because there has been a motion that was passed, I think, back in May 2018, which provided a small amount of money to help community groups, but essentially these were not groups that had any support or any assistance from council. Resident precinct committees do need some assistance, and I think it's important to put that up front in what we're talking about, so we all know what we're talking about. Note that they enable people to become involved in council issues and their community in the area that they live in, and the meetings are open to all local residents. Note that they're an effective way of involving the community in planning and in decision making. Note that they need support of a council officer. They should ensure that ward councillors are regularly able to and invited to attend meetings, and that they need to be resourced with no cost for the venue hire and assistance with costs for circulating minutes and agendas in the local area, which is a pretty minimal cost. I think the major cost really is the fact that they do need staffing support. So what I'm proposing as an alternative motion, because we really don't have time to consult in this term of council, is that we bring a report on residents' precincts committees and how they can be established and implemented in the Inner West to the November 23 ordinary meeting, including proposed consultation on introduction of resident precinct committees and costings and additional staffing required. The reason, again, I'm proposing that is having had conversations with some of the councillors, I don't think, obviously I know a lot about resident precinct committees, as does Councillor Stamalos, because we had them at Leichhardt Council. So we had 7 resident precinct committees at Leichhardt Council, and generally speaking, they worked very well for the majority of the time that I was certainly on council. And so it's that style of resident precinct committee that we're proposing. And I know that you didn't have them in Ashfield and you didn't have them in Marrickville. So I think it's important that we're all on the same page about what we're actually talking about, that we understand what kind of support would be required from council, what kind of resources would be required, and how we could implement them. Certainly my proposal is not that we suddenly have precinct committees right across the LGA. Oh, sorry, my time's run out. Could I get an extension of time of 2 minutes, please?
Moved.
Move Stamalos.
I'll second it.
Seconded De Cruz. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. Hopefully I won't need 2 minutes. Yeah, there's just, maybe 2 or 3 areas to start with that want to have precinct committees. Possibly it would be wider. And I think it's really important as well that we're bringing in areas where we've never had precinct committees as a way of people meeting together. For example, in Ashfield, where we've got a lot of our CALD communities and Marrickville, potentially we'd be able to bring a lot of those people together as well through the fact that it's geographically based and it's a face-to-face meeting. It's certainly something that is a lot more accessible for people who are not so digitally literate, because while social media is doing a great job in terms of creating WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and so on, it's not the same as a face-to-face meeting. And I think it's important that we are providing with our residents with different ways of meeting, of discussing council issues, of feeling that they are involved in the democratic process as well, and that they can, and obviously there's that consultative function that the precinct committees form, but it's also very much about having a voice and knowing that you're being heard and being a place where people can go to and connect with other members of the community and raise issues which are of concern to them. And it's a really excellent way for councillors as well to tap into what the issues are locally and to ensure that they're properly addressing them. So for me, it's a win-win, and I think it's particularly essential in this very large council. So I hope that councillors will support that motion that I'm now presenting to you. Councillor Stamalos, did you want to speak on this item?
Yes, I will. Thanks, Madam Mayor. As you would know, I spent 11 years in the Balmain White Bay precinct, and 9 of those years as the chair of that precinct. And I must say that it was an extremely productive time. There was great connection with council. The good thing is that the model used was council was very much hands-off, but there was assistance from officers. There was the ability to put a newsletter out. There was access to rooms. So I would say that this motion here, opening it up now to Ashfield and Marrickville, is extremely positive. I know that throughout the Inner West, people are wanting to know how they can engage. how they can engage with our council. And I see this as one very important way. Even though I was in the precinct for 11 years, I never saw it as the only way. It is one very important way. I know that a number of people have said, 8 to 12 people turn up to precinct meetings. That's not the issue. The fact was that, as most of us know, 200 to 300 people made their way through the precinct every year, and thousands were informed by the precinct every year. As issues changed, people moved in and out of the precinct, so it served its value and purpose as being a body that could discuss resident issues without council oversight, and then minutes would go through to council and often to councillors. Councillors would be invited to those meetings, and I thought it was a very healthy and mature exchange between our community and the council body. That's all I'll say for now, because I do welcome this motion. I hope that other councillors welcome this as a means of engaging with our community, as one means of doing that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Stallis. So I've got Councillor McKenna. Any other councillor want to speak at this stage? Please go ahead, Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm speaking against this motion. Precinct committees, well, like you said, were a factor of Leichhardt Council. The other areas have well-established groups within them and within the community. These groups, as not-for-profits, have access to council meeting rooms, and they have plenty of access to councillors. They're completely free of council. They have their own constitutions and do, but have play a really important role in the everyday life of their communities. I'm absolutely against giving the council staff more work. And if we were having precinct committees at the rate you had them in Leichhardt, 7 in Leichhardt, that means we'd have about 24 precinct committees. That is just ridiculous. Our council staff have enough work to do, and it is our job as councillors to get around and talk to residents and get to our local groups. There are plenty of groups in the old Ashfield and the old Marrickville LGAs, and I'm afraid I'm totally opposed to giving the council staff more work and expecting them to be whatever, and in a way giving certain people more access to council and to council staff. That's not right. That's not democratic. They're not elected. I think we should. We have groups within our communities now, and I think they're doing a great job, and they're totally independent, and I think that's the way we should stay. Thanks.
Councillor McKenna.
May I speak?
Go ahead, Councillor Pastis. Yeah.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor McKenna 100%. You are picking a few groups to have more access to council staff and funding, where just the ordinary resident is not afforded the same. Residents, like a neighbourhood or a street, can get together or contact their councillors if they have a problem. Precincts, to me, there might be one or two that were non-political, but to me they're political. If you can't contact one of 15 councillors, if collectively a few neighbours or people, like-minded people, got together and didn't put their issues across, we might as well close and go home. Why are we funding a group of people and yet the ordinary resident that is not afforded the same? I cannot understand why this is being pushed. Are we having Clayton's councillors? I have found that the precinct committees previously were very political. We had a group in Haberfield that used to have their business papers delivered to them and access to staff a couple of the members used to live 24/7 up at the council offices, driving our staff up the wall. And their agenda, I'm afraid to say, all the years I've been on council, was to give residents absolute hell. Absolute hell. So everybody's got their issues. Everybody's got something that they believe in, and everybody has something that they want to raise at council. There's plenty of avenues to do it. I think our staff are finding it hard at the moment, even just to get back to the residents, a single resident with a serious issue. So they've got to be at the beck and call of the precincts. And I don't think it's right that a certain group of people gets funding from council. And Joe Blow down the corner that could have the same issue doesn't. And as Councillor McKenna said, I don't think this council would deny anybody if a group or a street got together and wanted a meeting. So it's just totally unnecessary, and I'll be opposing this too.
Thanks, Councillor Passes. Councillor De Cruz.
Yeah, look, I think I've had a little bit of experience with the Annandale precinct. I think there's a misunderstanding on how the precincts work, and they're actually there to perform a function and are of assistance to the staff. So when there's a need for consultation, such as currently the community strategy plan or the budget, or even with the DA, the community has a local place to go to, because now the council offices are so far away, the councillors are so far away, and they're stretched. So in actual fact, the community is providing a great service to the council, and the expectation that they do this for nothing is quite significant. And to actually have a contact in council who they can request information through is very useful. And I think that's what's been lacking in this term of council, a way for the council as well as the councillors to easily engage with the community, other than setting up one-on-one meetings, and that's just not viable with the size of meetings, with the size of the electorate we have. So I think that they're really important. You can call them resident precinct meetings, you can call them neighbourhood committees. I know that there are some groups that are very active and in some areas, but there are some areas where there is no one, and there's no local focus for the community to contact council, bring up matters. It may not be just council matters, it may be state government matters, but there's a kind of depth of knowledge in these groups that people can share and progress things. Even if they do need to bring something to councillors, that's where they learn about how the process works. And of course, the other area which we haven't discussed is the DAs. When there's a DA, that goes to the planning panel. Councillors don't have any involvement of that now, but certainly having the precinct to assist you when there's a DA as a community member, that's extremely valuable. So I think I certainly support local groups for which have an interest in their particular neighbourhood and build that social capacity, and it's a worthwhile thing to have a precinct. Thank you, and I hope councillors will support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor De Cruz. Is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item? Councillor Macri, please go ahead.
Chair, you're asking for a report. My policy on people who ask for a report, I don't deny councillors' right to information, but I want to make sure the report comes back and answers a number of questions. That is the cost to the actual having these committees and running these committees. I want to make sure we know what the impact to staff are going to be. And I want to know if we're duplicating our advisory committee, our panels where communities join. We've got LGBTQ, we've got transport, we've got environmental, Cooks River committees, we've got all these other different committees. Are we overlapping, and is it really something we really need to do? And I am concerned about the impact the staff, because I don't know about other councillors, but my regular email stream is that staff are not getting back to residents and they're coming to me to get assistance, to get responses from staff. And if that's going to put a further load on the staff, I'll be very hesitant. You can't have everything. You either have your precinct committees or you have your council advisory committees. I can't see this duplication of all these things. And as far as locality or issues and being able to talk to issues, I've seen the residents at Tempe come together in a real meaningful and great way in trying to find a way to resolve the issue with the Bunnings development. Where there's a need, the community gathers. I don't think they need to be guided. They need to be assisted at some point by delivering them some assistance, and we have done that. But it's really important that they stand alone and they represent their own voice, not the view of any particular political party, because it waters down their message. And if we have councillors attending them, I think that politicises them. I think it confuses the issue. So in the report, I'd like to say what the benefit's going to be of a precinct committee as opposed to an advisory committee, because we can't afford to be running both, particularly in the budget in the situation it's in. That's all I'll say. But I'll support to get a report. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Macri. Any other councillor that wants to speak on this item? Otherwise,
could I ask a question, please? When is
Sure.
this report to come back?
It's 23rd of November.
That's not very long for the staff to do the work.
I think that they already know the answers. Well, that most of them they do, yeah. I've been speaking to staff today. Is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item? Councillor Macri, just to acknowledge your request, I'll just add an additional few words in there, if I could, minute taker. The relationship between advisory committees and resident precinct committees. If you could just add that, Catherine, to the point 5, the report, and costings and additions required, and potential relationship between advisory committees and resident precinct committees. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Look, I'll quickly take a right of reply. Just to clarify a few things, we're not talking about suddenly having a precinct committee right across the LGA. So we're not talking about introducing 24 precinct committees in one fell swoop. We're talking about introducing precinct committees where there is a request and a demand for them only. We're not talking about putting more impost onto our current staff. We would obviously need to recruit an additional staff member, possibly part-time, depending on the number of precinct committees that established, in order to do the work required to support these precinct committees, and probably do some other work as well around committees and the general working with improving the democracy at local level across the council area. So I don't think that's a particular issue. Yes, I know that's more cost, but we actually have this, in inverted commas, saving at the moment of over $8 million in our budget, because we haven't been spending the money that we should be spending on staff. And to be honest, there's a lot of holes in our staffing at the moment, a lot of places that have not been filled, where staff have left for various reasons, which is, I think, in part the reason that we're seeing it take a long time for residents to be getting responses to their complaints and queries, etc., to council. But in terms of what is being proposed here, it's requiring as well that the report comes back with costings and with the additional staffing that are required. I guess the point is as well that this is about democracy. Democracy is such a critical issue, particularly local democracy. And I think it's one of the huge losses that we've had with this forcibly amalgamated council is we have lost a sense of the local and a sense of local democracy. And my preference, and I've always been upfront about this, is that we do return to the 3 councils, because I think they better represented the residents than one very large council does. But I think in that process, we can at the very least, no matter what happens in the future with the Inner West Council, at the very least, we should be establishing residents' precinct committees, because they do enable local democracy. They do enable people to meet locally, discuss council issues, discuss community issues, and to engage locally with their council in a way that they simply cannot do with the council the size that it is currently. So I hope that you will support this motion.
May I ask a question? May I ask a question before I vote on this?
Councillor Passos, desist. I haven't finished speaking.
May I ask a question? When
you cannot ask a question, Councillor Passos. The time your time, Councillor Passos.
You let Councillor McKenna ask.
Councillor Passos, I said please desist. Thank you. So I hope you will support this motion. Thank you. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against? So against, we've got McKenna, Passos, Drury, Iskander. Councillor Rossetti, are you there? Councillor Rossetti?
I'm against.
Against, okay. And Councillor Rossetti is against.
Sorry, Catherine,
Okay.
I'm for. I didn't put my hand up, but I'm for.
You're for, yeah. So that's not 4-2. Okay.
You might wish to recommit the vote if people are confused.
I think it's 6-5.
I think it was pretty clear. I'm happy. If
Councillor Macri's hand was up for.
I saw Councillor Macri's hand up for quite clearly, so I don't think there was any confusion there. Okay, so we've got 8 for and 5 against. So that's carried. Thanks, councillors.
Mayor, you're just talking about democracy and you wouldn't let me ask a question.
Yes, because I had already done my right of reply. You no longer have a right to ask a question. That is democracy, Councillor Passos. Get with it.
Nobody.
Okay. The next item we have on the agenda, Councillor
Don't tell a
Passos.
Greek about democracy.
Councillor Passos.
We invented it.
Councillor Passos, if you continue, I will give you a warning. Item 18 is Councillor McKenna's.
Excuse me, could you just the numbers again, because there was 5 against and you said it was 8-4.
Yeah. That's
yeah,
right.
I can see there's 5 recorded against Drury, Iskander, McKenna.
Yes,
Passos,
that's correct. Yeah. Your issue? I can't. You're
How many councillors are present?
13.
There is 13 present, is there?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Okay, councillors, item 18, which is Councillor McKenna's motion ending period of poverty in the Inner West. Councillor McKenna, do we have a seconder for this motion?
Yes, I'll second it, and I have an amendment.
Okay.
I gave.
So I'll come to that amendment in a moment, Councillor Steele. I'll just go back to Councillor McKenna and ask if she wants to speak to the item first of all, then I'll come to your amendment. Councillor McKenna?
Just very, very quickly, I just wanted to say, initially, this is to be to assess the need. This is something that's very topical, this issue, but I'm not certain about the absolute need. So I think that has to be done first to make sure that there is a need and we're not just going out on something because it's a popular thing to do at the moment. There's a lot of discussion about it, but that's all. Thank you.
May I speak?
No.
Okay, no, not right now, Councillor Passos. I'll put you on the speaking list. I've got Councillor Steer now, please.
Thank you. I'm just trying to find the amendment because I sent it to Catherine some time ago, and so I'm trying to find it. Catherine, Catherine's found it. Thank you very much. Yes. And this amendment is to ensure that period products are available in council-run facilities when we get them built, and public toilets for the use of anyone who needs to use them, and as soon as possible. And I didn't specify a deadline because we are heading towards the caretaker period, but next year would be good. But I'll leave that for the future council to come up with. And the other point is to give in principle support now to the supply of free period products, subject to the receipt of the report from staff. That gives the future council plenty of ways of dealing with it, but it does get the ball rolling on this very important issue. And why it's an important issue is because people who need period products need them on a regular basis and need every month, and there's nothing worse, as quite a number of people here would know, than being caught short. And there are people who cannot afford to buy these products, which seem to be becoming increasingly expensive, and it does affect the way that they can lead their lives. So this very simple measure would give great assistance to more than half of our population in the inner west, and I think should be commended. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Steer. So, Councillor McKenna, are you going to accept Councillor Steer's amendments?
I can't, because my motion is asking for a pilot program. And the purpose of a pilot program is that you do it as a pilot, and then you establish the need and where, etc. And then you'd come back to the new council with a report that says this is the result of the pilot. This is asking us to approve something before we have the pilot.
Okay, so Councillor Steer, those amendments are not going to be accepted. I have to be honest, I think that it might be a foreshadowed motion rather than an amendment, because effectively, as Councillor McKenna has pointed out, she's not progressing the issue, she's just asking for a report.
No, I'm asking for a pilot program to be undertaken.
Whereas you're basically saying, let's do it now, and you're progressing it so that it's implemented immediately.
Yes. No, I understand that. Look, what I'll do, I don't want to delay this, and I do think it's an important motion. I will withdraw the amendment and just run with the motion.
Okay, so that amendment is withdrawn. We have the primary motion. Are there any other councillors that want to speak to this motion?
Yes, I did.
Please go ahead, Councillor Passos.
Look, I come from an era where we didn't discuss these things, and I feel sorry for the guys, but still, we are 2021. I will support this because it is pilot. There's a need to see where the need is. I happen to know that a lot of our community centres and a lot of our places already supply this to the homeless. And I also know that all the coaches and the sports people, they've already got that down pat. It's alongside with their first aid kit when they're dealing with females. So I think it's going to be a very problematic putting them in public toilets. The need, everybody gets caught out at some time all over the world, all over Australia, all over Sydney, all over the inner west. We can't supply these things in every venue. The idea is okay, but schools already have this in place. Coaches and parents and everybody already have this in place. And I know community services for the homeless already supply these. So if it's a pilot program to see how it works, I can't see how it's going to be implemented. I can't see how it's going to be abused. People just going along to a public toilet and taking the whole supply. and the people who really need it and that are caught out, there's none there. But I'll go along with the pilot. As I said, I think this has already been addressed. Maybe Labor and the Greens are looking for an issue for the council election. I don't know. But all I can say is I feel sorry for the guys on council. Thank you. They wouldn't be game enough to vote against this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Passes. Are there any other councillors that want to speak on this item? Otherwise, I'll go to Councillor McKenna for a right of reply.
No,
Okay,
no.
I'm going to waive your right of reply. Thank you. So, councillors, I'm now going to put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And I believe that is unanimous. Thanks, councillors. Councillors, the next item is item 9. Well, it was 19. It's now item 8, which is Councillor Byrne's motion about Easton Park sporting fields. Does one of his colleagues want to move that? So, Councillor,
I move it.
Councillor Drury is moving it. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Skander, you're seconding that, is that right? Okay, so that's moved by Drury, seconded by Skander. Did you want to speak to it, Councillor Drury?
I don't believe there's a need.
Okay. Councillor Skander, did you want to speak to it? Sorry, Councillor Skander, no, that's a no. Okay, thank you. Are there any other councillors that want to speak to this motion?
Councillor Porteous, if I can.
Please go ahead, Councillor Hessing.
Thank you, Councillor Porteous. I won't speak long. I'm in sympathy with Councillor Byrne's, well, Councillor Drury now, his proposal, but I can't agree to jumping the queue here. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I don't think that's okay. I'm sure it will be on the list and it will have to wait its turn. I know that some councillors may have seen a list provided by one of our senior staff, and it would mean dropping down a number of ovals elsewhere, and I can't support that. So I'm in sympathy, but I can't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, Councillor Porteous.
Please go ahead, Councillor Kerr.
I thought it might be useful for the record for that advice to be given verbally now, and I actually can't recall which parks would be delayed as a result of this. So could I direct through you a question to the relevant manager on that issue?
So could we have a response on that from the relevant staff officer, please?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, you got me?
There you go. Okay.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, the proposed parks that may need to be rescheduled to accommodate this one being brought forward are Algie Park, Hoskins Park, King George Park, or Marrickville Park. They're the ones that currently got scheduled for 22-23 of a similar scale and size that would need to be addressed potentially.
Can I just add something, councillors? And I did respond to an email. Easton Park was scheduled to be done a couple of years ago, and I actually asked this question when it came up because I recall it before I left. It was scheduled to be done, and it was delayed because it was potentially going to be storage or a storage site that the government had earmarked. So we put it off, but then didn't put it quick enough back into the program. So yeah, it's not a matter. At the end of the day, I think the court, we can't do it for the 2022 winter season. It's impossible. That the earliest we can do is the following season. So really, if you read Kathy's reply, it's just a matter of the officers. What I'd be saying is we'll do our winter program. It'd be a matter for the staff through the budget process to look at which one's in the worst nick and try and prioritise it that way, and then have a look at the impacts of doing Easton Park at the same time as King George Park because they're very close to each other. So it's impossible to do for the 22 season, but I think I'd like the discretion, and I want to ask the question of staff to prioritise what the worst condition is, considering this one was to be originally scheduled a few years ago, and it is in pretty poor nick because of the proximity to the tree root.
Thanks, Peter. Look, on that basis, I'll circulate some wording to the effect that council notes advice from staff that there will be a reassessment of the prioritisation of resurfacing of various parks requiring that work. But I don't think, as Councillor Hesse said, I don't think we should support pushing Easton Park to the front, just because one councillor has walked past it and seen that it needs the work. So, and I think that's a more sensible way forward. I suspect Councillor Drew might agree with me on that. That's a more rational way to approach this problem. But I'll circulate the wording soon and see.
Thanks for that, Councillor Kett. Councillor Kett, look, I might be speaking out. Sorry if I speak, but nobody else was on the list at this stage.
Yes, I wanted to speak.
Sorry, I'll add you straight after me, Councillor Passes. But I'm just wondering if it might be possible to get a short report back to the council meeting on the 23rd of November, just outlining which sporting fields are scheduled for resurfacing for this financial year and next financial year, and to get an understanding of and where currently Easton Park would be located within that scheduling and why. So at least we can get all the information up front, because the problem with this motion is it's just pulling out one park and it's not actually looking at the bigger picture about the impacts that prioritising one park is going to have on all the other parks in the municipality. We really need to see the bigger picture and see if there's any opportunity to change that scheduling. Also listening to the staff and what they tell us about what can and can't be done, while at the same time trying to pick up the fact that there clearly is a need at Easton Park, which where possibly we need to try and meet that need as well. Would there be possibility for you to?
Yep, I've circulated wording to that effect, Rochelle. The council received a report on that issue.
Thank you. Councillor Passes, please go ahead.
Yes, there's no doubt that a lot of parks need attention. However, given our financial situation, and given that I visited a street in Ashfield last week, that the footpath is in midair. There's a big hollow underneath it. The rest of the street was filled up with black tar. The footpaths were absolutely horrendous. And how we haven't had anybody fall and sustain serious injury, I don't know. We're also given the fact that we couldn't put the toilets in Camperdown Park. I think the toilets are much more urgent than this park. Plenty of parks need work. That's why I'm concerned about our infrastructure backlog that reduced. Everywhere you look, the municipality needs funding. We must have priorities. We must have basic amenities, water and toilets, and decent footpaths, and roads that are not filled with tar, and footpaths that are filled with tar that are making them even more uneven, disintegrating gutters. I really cannot support this, and we must get our priorities right.
Thanks for that, Councillor Passes. Is there any other councillor that needs to be?
Question.
Yes.
I've got a question from Councillor Lockie and then Councillor De Cruz.
Just in relation to Councillor Keatt's amendment, is that an amendment or a foreshadowed motion?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a foreshadow, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, I'm happy to second the foreshadow, Mayor.
Did you want to speak any further, Councillor Lockie?
Oh, no, I think they're all fairly self-explanatory.
Okay. Councillor De Cruz?
Yeah, look, only because the General Manager mentioned King George Park, I was under the impression we were getting funding from WestConnex to do work at, say, King George Park. Can I get
is that a question to the General Manager, Councillor De Cruz?
Yes.
Okay. I'll put that to the General Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My understanding for King George Park, if I recall correctly, we had a council report a little while ago, and it was on something to do with storage and the car park itself. There may be funding to do the playing service, but I don't believe so. I think we've just allocated our playing surface budget to upgrade it. But I'm happy to give feedback. We can take it as a question on notice and update the councillors in the briefing next week of where that funding from WestConnect is going around King George Park.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor, is there any more discussion on this item?
Thank you.
Councillor Stamoulis, please go ahead.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, I think that we're all very well around the chamber that things have shifted up and down the list as need has prevailed. And we've done it a couple of times where particular ovals and surfaces have gone from lower on the list to much higher. In fact, prioritise them to number one. We've done that a few times. Now, Easton Park wasn't identified by one councillor who took a stroll by that field. In fact, Councillor Porteous, I think you'd be very well aware Easton Park's been identified for the best part of a decade as being problematic, and that we've had reports from the users of that field over some years that something needs to be done to improve that surface. We're now reaching a critical point where the usability of this field could put some sporting activities at risk. The list should never be inflexible. It should absolutely never be inflexible. We need to be agile as a council, as we've shown a number of times, where this list has become flexible as we've needed it. We should have a quick inspection and a strong assessment of the quality of that field and also the intensity of use. And I think you'll find it is a candidate for moving up that list. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Stamoulis. Are there any other councillors that want to speak on this item? Otherwise, I'll go to Councillor Drury for a right of reply. Councillor Drury? Sorry, are you making...
Look, we've brought this forward because we've had a look at Easton Park and the surface does need attention. I do understand that it was supposed to be done some time ago. It has been identified as a park in need. I'd urge all to support the resolution.
Thanks, Councillor Drury. Councillors, I'll now put the Drury-Skander motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So that's Councillor Drury, Councillor Rossetti, Councillor Skander, Councillor McKenna. Councillor Passis, are you there? I think Councillor Passis is absent. So that's McKenna. Oh, Councillor Passis, are you in favour of the... You're on mute. Are you in favour of the Drury-Skander motion?
No, I'm opposed.
Okay. All right. So it's McKenna, Drury, Rossetti, Skander.
I think Councillor Stamoulis as well.
And Stamoulis in favour. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. Sorry. Okay. All those against, please raise your hands. That's Porteous, Passis, Hesse, Kiet, Lockie, De Cruz, Macri, Steer. So just clarifying that. So that's 5 for and 8 against. So that is lost, which means we now go to the foreshadowed motion. Councillor Kiat, did you want a right of reply on your foreshadowed motion? No. Okay, so the foreshadowed motion is that council receive a report on the officer's assessment of the prioritisation of resurfacing of major parks that require this work in coming years. I'll now put that. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So that's Stamoulis, Porteous, McKenna, Drury. Drury? No. Passis, yes, Passis. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. So the next item on the agenda is the closure of path through Leichhardt Secondary. Councillor De Cruz's item 9. Councillor De Cruz, so you're moving that. Do I have a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Steer is seconding that. Councillor De Cruz, did you want to speak to this item?
Yeah, just briefly to thank the speaker who came the other week to speak about this park, and it's heavily used by pedestrians to travel from Hill Street to Northern Street, and we would like to keep it open. So I commend this motion to write to the Minister to provide public access along this path. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cruz. Councillor Steer, did you want to speak to the item?
No, I don't.
Thank you.
I'd like to speak and ask a question.
Please go ahead, Councillor Passos.
I had a resident ring me about this issue, and I'm afraid I cannot remember what the speakers said at the last meeting. However, what is the reasoning for them wanting the Department of Education closing this?
Okay, you're putting that question to Council Officer?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll put that to the relevant Council Officer, the General Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. From what I understand is they want to close it during school time. They've recently done some renovation works, so I'm not too sure whether it's about COVID safety, but they want to lock it during those school hours and then open it after hours, because their playground goes across into a new covered area where they've got basketball courts, and this sort of divides part of the school. So I don't know whether it's COVID or security is the reason, but I'm happy to find out and circulate that to councils when an answer comes back after we write to them.
Can we defer this till we get that information?
It's your option, Councillor Passos. You can move a foreshadowed motion to defer.
Well, I would like to move a foreshadowed motion for deferral to get the reasoning behind this. Is it short term? Is it security? Is it COVID? What is the reasoning?
Okay.
I don't.
No, okay, please go ahead.
That's all I want, and I think before we can make a decision on this, we need to know more about it, why it's being done. We wouldn't want to vote on something that was a bit detrimental to the children, but it doesn't seem like there's been any problems previously. But if it's because of works or COVID, can we find out about this?
Okay, so Councillor Passos, if you could provide that wording to the...
No, well, I cannot, Mayor. I don't send these things in. Can we have a deferral till we find out the reasoning behind this? And
okay, so we've got the wording here, Councillor Passos. Catherine's kindly put it up that this item is deferred to get further detail on the reasoning for the closure. You happy with that?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Catherine.
All right, councillors, is there any other councillor that would like to speak on this item? Okay, no other councillor wants to speak on this item. So we've got a foreshadowed from Councillor Passos. Do we have a seconder for the foreshadowed motion? Councillor Macquarie's seconding the foreshadowed.
I'll second.
Oh, okay. I think Councillor Macquarie did before you, Councillor Drury. So second, Councillor Macquarie. All right, so councillors, if there's no other councillor that wants to speak to this item, I'll go to Councillor Cruz for a right of reply. Councillor Cruz.
Yeah, look, I might actually use that right of reply because I think basically we're writing to the Education Department who's recently put up fencing to block the footpath off, and the community really wants to know why that's happened. And that's why we're writing to the Department of Education. So I'm not quite sure what the deferral of writing to the Department of Education to ask them about keeping the path open or closing it is how different that is from what's on the papers to write to the council asking for the path to be kept open. And if they write to us and say it's the children's safety, then the path needs to be closed during school hours, then that's okay. But I think we should register that the community would like the path to be kept open because they do use it.
Okay,
so I hope you will support my motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Cruz. Okay, councillors, I'll now put the motion that I've lost now. Okay, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So we've got Councillor Stamalos, Porteous, McKenna, Drury, Cruz, Hesse, Lockie, Rossetti, Steer, Iskander. All those against? All those against, we've got Macri and Councillor Passos, you're against, yeah? Councillor Rossetti was for. Councillor Rosita, you were for, weren't you?
Yes, I'm for.
Okay, so it's just Councillor Macri and Councillor Passes against. So that's 11 for and 2 against. Thanks for that, councillors. The next item is the inquiry investigation, which is Councillor Passis's motion. So we need a seconder for that. Do we have a seconder for Councillor Passis's motion, please?
Nobody wants an inquiry.
Is there a seconder for that?
Looks like it lapses.
Okay, if there's no seconder for it, it will lapse.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting.
Okay, councillors, if there's no seconder for Councillor Passis's motion, that's going to lapse. Okay. It looks like there's no second for that. I'm sorry about that, Councillor.
Well, that's okay, Councillor Porteous. More fodder for my leaflet.
Okay. So that's we'll move on to the next item then, which is item 22. Again, that's Councillor Passis's motion, cost benefits. I think this is about no longer being a member of SS Rock, Local Government New South Wales and such groups. So is there a seconder for this item? You're seconding that, Councillor Macri? Yep, okay. So Councillor Passis, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Look, I've made a lot of inquiries about these organisations and how many councils are involved in them. And I'll go to the Local Government New South Wales. I don't recall any opposition from them on the forced amalgamations. I don't recall any opposition from them on West Connex when the whole 3 councils were opposed to it. SS Rock, I believe our council is big enough to negotiate the fees of consultants for organisations, and they are costing us quite a lot of money. And I cannot see what they're doing for our council. And there are many, many councils that do not belong to them. All I know is that all I get from Local Government New South Wales is when's the next conference, when's the next talk fest, when's this on, when that's on. What use, what value for money are our ratepayers getting out of these organisations? And you only have to see the lobbying when the time comes to vote for people that are on in these organisations to see how political they are. So I'm not fussed one way or the other what councillors do on this, but I felt I had to put this up because for years now, and I recall the former Asheville Council, we had a report that it was really no use of us belonging to SS Rock. There's no value in it. So the motion's there, councillors, feel free to do what you want. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Passis. Councillor Macri, did you want to speak to this item?
Just briefly, Chair. As I said before, I don't mind if councillors are seeking information for a report. I think a report on this will be a good basis for other councils, other new councillors when they're coming in. And it is really incumbent on us to make sure we are getting value for ratepayers' money and these organisations are delivering something for the ratepayers, because the cost, I don't think it'd be that onerous a report if they can come back. If there's nothing to write in the report, well then that does raise questions of why we're part of these organisations. So we just need to know what benefits we are getting from those memberships, what benefit the community is getting. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Macri. Councillor Drury, you had your hand up?
Yeah, look, some broken records just keep spinning around. We have had, and the old Ashfield Council did have, reports outlining the value of remaining as part of SS Rock and Local Government New South Wales. This is part of a long-running and persistent campaign This is not simply asking for information, as Councillor Macri puts it. This is part of a pattern of behaviour, and I don't think that this should be entertained. I'd urge all to vote against.
Thanks, Councillor Drury. Councillor Hesse?
I will be as brief as Councillor Drury. I've actively participated in the Cooks River Alliance, the Coastal Councils group, and local government New South Wales and local government Australia the ALGA conference. At each of those, indeed, politics, particularly at the Coastal Councils and the Cooks River Alliance, is so minimal as to be invisible. It's where councillors come together from across the local government areas to share information and take action for the benefit of all our ratepayers around areas of common interest and importance. Likewise, at the state and federal bodies of local government. These are very important to making sure the voice of local government is heard. And I would support Councillor Drury entirely and ask people to vote against. Councillor passes his motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Hesse. Is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Please go ahead, Councillor Stamoulis.
Thank you. I'll be supporting this motion because I think Councillor Passis has made it clear that she's after the benefits and the costs. I don't think it's I don't think it's merely after the disadvantages of being in the groups. I think it's simply reviewing our membership of any of those groups, and I think that's a worthwhile process. And at this particular point, when this report will come back to the brand new council, it allows that council good solid information, particularly the new councillors. There's going to be at least 7 new councillors who'd want to know some of these things about the various groups we're on. I don't see it as an attack on those groups. I don't see it as a negative motion. I see it as part of what we should be doing. Certainly every term of council is reviewing the operation of these groups, even giving feedback to those groups to improve them. I see that as important. So I'll vote for it on that basis. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stamoulis. Is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item? I'll just speak briefly. Look, I've been on the local government New South Wales executive, and I've also been on SS Rock as a delegate. The local government New South Wales is not a particularly political animal. In fact, I was always really impressed on the executive how councillors from all different political backgrounds were working together really collaboratively most of the time to try and get good outcomes for the council, or for all of the councils. In terms of the campaign against the forced amalgamation of councils, local government New South Wales was extremely active on that campaign, supporting councils that were fighting amalgamation. They provided legal services. The president at the time spoke at rallies, and they provided a lot of support for the councils in various ways. SS Rock, I think both excellent organisations that provide a lot of services, a lot of support, and a lot of strategic direction as well, which you can't achieve as a single council. You're always much more effective as a group of councils. And of course, SS Rock, particularly in the area of procurement, has been very, very effective. And it's not the case that you can achieve the same kind of agreements that we're able to achieve as a group of councils. And you've got the resources of the SS Rock, which is significant and are well utilised by our council. Again, the Sydney Coastal Council group, I've been on their executive as well, and just so impressed again by the calibre of the councillors who get involved with those groups. And I mean, I was working with Liberal councillors, Labor councillors, independent councillors. I honestly did not care what their political ilk was, and they didn't care what mine was. The point was that we all cared about the coastal development and the pollution and how we can get the best outcome for all of our coastal councils in Sydney. And again, did a great job, and it's very impressive. And I'm proud to be, that the Inner West Council is a member of those groups. I would suggest that the councillors that are proposing this motion do get involved, to be honest, because I think you would find it really helpful to put your hands up to be a delegate on the SS Rock, or you can come as an observer, get involved with local government New South Wales, get involved with the Sydney Coastal Council group. You know, I think that if you got involved, you would understand how they work. Yeah, of course, a report is in no way going to be the same as actually getting involved with these and seeing just how important they are and how valuable they are. So won't be supporting this motion. Councillors, I'll now go to Councillor Passes for a right of reply.
Yes, well, I've been accused of a pattern of behaviour. If it's being accountable with ratepayers' money is a bad pattern, I'll continue the bad pattern. I will not apologise for that. And also, I think we discussed not too long ago that SS Rock has picked our panel of investigators for code of conduct, when it was always a councillor's role, the council's role. All I'm asking for, what value is this for our ratepayers? What are we getting out of them? And as for not being political, I have an email that if councillors want to see it privately, they can, to show you if they're not political. Okay? And I will sit on that email. I don't raise these things because I have nothing else to do. I raise these things because I believe we should be getting value for money. And the hundreds and thousands of dollars we're paying could be paying for resurfacing of parks, could be building new toilets, and could be fixing footpaths. And if we're not good enough and our professional staff are not good enough to hire consultants and to go out for the right information, we might as well lock the door and go home. We don't need nannies holding our hand. We have staff that I think are good enough, and I think they're good enough to go and get the advice where they have to. How many more tiers of council are we going to have? Councillors, it's up to you what you do. As when I put motions up, everyone, it's their prerogative on how they vote for it. But as I said, my pattern of behaviour does not change. Accountability and value for money for ratepayers.
Thank you, Councillor Passes. I'll now put the Passes-Macri motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So we've got Passes, Macri and Stamalos. I believe Councillor Rossetti?
Yes, I'm for the motion.
You're for the motion, okay,
Yeah.
and Rossetti. All those against, please raise your hand. So that's McKenna, Drury, De Cruz, Lockie, Steer, Iskander, Porteous, Hesse, Kiat, and Lockie I've already said, yeah. So that should be, so that's 4 and 9 against. That's correct, yeah. Okay, thank you, councillors. The next item we have on the agenda is item Meals on Wheels, which is again Councillor Passis's motion, and that is now item 12. Do we have a seconder for this, first of all? Just want to check I haven't missed anybody. No seconder for this item? Okay, if there's no seconder for this item, that's going to lapse.
I'll second it.
Okay, so that's seconded by Councillor Rossetti. Councillor Passes, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Rossetti. There have been numerous reports lately in the press about the malnutrition that our less mobile people and elderly has been showing up from doctors and from our health departments. Now, I'm not saying that council runs the Meals on Wheels. We work with an organisation that's already doing this. There must be some way that we can reintroduce this service. This council gives away thousands and thousands of ratepayers' dollars.
Right.
The community centres, yes, to community centres. Are the community centres reaching the people that need their services, that need it. I am aware of residents that cannot leave their home, and if they don't have family to bring them food, proper food, well-cooked food, nutritious food, they're missing out. This council prides itself. Every week there's motions up for the vulnerable. Well, let's do something instead of just throwing money at different groups that are not addressing these problems. Not everybody can go to these organisations and pick up food parcels. And most of the time, the food is not nutritious. I'm asking for council to find a way that we can work with some organisation and reintroduce this service. There are council areas that are still doing this, and we are such a big council, and I don't know why we cannot reintroduce it.
Thanks for that, Councillor Passis. Councillor Rossetti, did you want to speak to this item?
Just to say that I 100% agree with Councillor Passis. There is a lot of people that do not have access to a computer or internet, and that at home starving. So I think we should do something about those people. Thank you.
Councillor Porteous, Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please go ahead, Councillor Kett, and then I've got Councillor McKenna.
Yeah, through the chair, I just want to confirm that the Meals on Wheels service has continued through our Uniting Care. Is that correct?
So I'll put that to the relevant council officer.
Yes, through the chair, that is correct. The Meals on Wheels service is being delivered by services that that's basically their main service provision, whereas the Meals on Wheels within council was just a very small part of it. So it's gone to organisations that are able to deliver a lot of meals at a cost-effective price for the customers.
Right. So I'd just like to raise a point of order. I understood in Councillor Pass's speech that she wanted not that council recommence delivering these services directly, but that the service that was previously provided by council be provided by another organisation. We already voted for that to occur, and I recall the main reason that we did that was, as was just outlined by Ms. McLeod, those services were better able to provide that and the other wraparound services. So I'd just like to raise that as a point of order. I think that the motion is redundant on the basis that Councillor Pass has just put forward.
On the basis that it's not recommencing because we've already
Well, yeah. So what Councillor Pass has just asked for, that is exactly what has happened and which council has already determined should occur. So, and we've just had it confirmed that that's what's happening. Yeah, so I can't really see how we can vote on this when Councillor Pass has just articulated that what she wants to occur is not to bring these services back into council's operations, but that she just wants the service to continue. Well, they have continued as we've asked that they do through other services. So,
Councillor Kett, I'm reading Councillor Passis's motion that says urgently recommence Meals on Wheels. Council urgently recommence.
Yeah, I know, and that's how I understood it. But in her speech, she just said that, and perhaps she wants to clarify, you know, and if it's that she wants council to.
Yes, I can clarify if you'd like. I can clarify what I mean.
Thank you. Yeah.
If council cannot commence our own council Meals on Wheels service, if there is such a service, how come our people don't know about it? Okay. If there is such a service that's there, our people, I'm asking for a report what's going on.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
People are not receiving. This is the first I heard that we have this service, or we're working with someone that has this service.
So how about if we could go to the acting Director of Community Services. So I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor McKenna, and just ask how can we actually make sure people are aware of the fact there is a Meals on Wheels service provided locally? What are we doing to make sure that people are aware of it? Can we do more?
Through the Mayor. So what we currently do is provide the service and on the internet and refer people to the internet. Plus, we do have staff that specialise in helping the elderly. And so if we were to get a phone call, for example, for those people that don't have the internet, that staff member would refer them and give them all the contact details of how they would get in touch with someone who could line them up for the Meals on Wheels. And also, I would think that through the My Aged Care service is, which is on the federal government service, there's information about Meals on Wheels from there. And then there would also be things like social services such as GPs who would refer people to Meals on Wheels as well. That's off the top of my head, but I can definitely come back with more information about how the elderly find out about Meals on Wheels and other services.
Thank you for that. I'll go to Councillor McKenna.
Thank you, Mayor. Meals on Wheels are available to everybody. It's a tendered service that it comes under the My Aged Care, and the old HAC funding and My Aged Care has taken over most of that. It depends on which area you live in, who provides the service. If you're in Ashfield, it's the Burwood Community Services people that provide it. But Mr. McLeod is correct. You just ask around to the GPs usually know, but the service is definitely available to anybody who needs it. It's a Commonwealth funded service, Commonwealth and state, I think.
Thanks, Councillor McKenna. Are there any other councillors that want to speak on this item?
So can I just get some clarification on what we're actually debating? Because I took from what Councillor Passes just said that perhaps she wanted to receive some more information in the report.
Councillor Passes, would you be happy to change your motion to say that Council seeks to publicise widely the Meals on Wheels service within the municipality?
Well, I was going to bring that up in my right of reply. Yes, I don't have a problem with that. I'll change it to that. But to see what we can do to address this, we can't rely on Burwood and we can't rely on the doctors.
Okay, so I think what we're going to do is change that motion to read that Council widely advertises the availability of Meals on Wheels to residents in our municipality. Councillor Lockie?
Can I just get some clarification then on what would be meant by widely advertised? Because let's put that question first.
Yes.
Through you to the relevant.
I think it's going to be interpreted. Yeah. I'll put that to the acting Director for Community Services.
Through the chair, we could promote the Meals on Wheels services through the Inner West What's On, and then also in places like the library, but and we could also check with the providers that are providing Meals on Wheels service and find out what they're currently doing to market their services in the Inner West and report back to you.
Okay, look, I guess I'll speak to it now. I mean, that's a better motion than what we have. I think what my concern is that as somebody who has had a lot of dealings with the aged care sector over the last couple of years with my father and now my mother, this is such a big beast of a thing. And I think Councillor McKenna alluded to it earlier, is there are lots of touch points that people who require these services, which is much bigger than just Meals on Wheels. There is such an enormous need for aged care services and interventions at so many levels that we, with this, to pick one of them, whilst an important one, is only just barely touching the sides. And I think those other touch points for reaching people are both better skilled and better resourced for managing it than council will be. I really appreciate the intent behind this and the desire to assist. I am just not convinced that it is the best way for council to assist our ageing population. And I note as well that we do have a healthy ageing strategy that is going through the various council processes now, consulting with the public, consulting with our advisory groups and so forth. And that really needs to drive how we best support our population, both the ones who are already in the 50 plus category and those who are heading rapidly towards it like I am. I think we have to look at it from that strategic level first and foremost, because we do have limited resources. This is a space which is largely federal and state rather than local when it comes to provision of services like this. That, you know, we need to look at that in a much more strategic sense rather than a knee-jerk, well, let's advertise this one or let's provide this service. It just has to be better thought through than that. And so, yeah, I don't think I can support this. And it's not because I don't support the intent. It's just because I don't think this is the best way for us to approach how we work with that part of our community. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Lockie. Is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item?
Could I just give some more information?
Yes, please go ahead,
I've just Googled Meals on Wheels, and there's Meals on Wheels New South Wales. They have 14,000 volunteers. They provide 4.5 million meals a year. There's 150 local Meals on Wheels branches, and they cover the state. So it's not hard to get the information. It is all there, and you can get it through My Aged Care, as we also said. So its mascot is the head office. So the service is available to everyone.
Thanks for that, Councillor McKenna. If there's no other councillor that wants to speak on this item, I'll go to Councillor Passes for a right of reply. Councillor Passes.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry I only brought this up and I didn't look at the big picture. I brought this up because of the nutrition and the food, and people are not aware. It might be okay on the website, but the 4 years I've been on this council, not one of those services has been in our quarterly newsletters. I don't remember one leaflet drop telling people that everyone has just told me about all these services that are available. It's a pity we haven't put them in the newsletters. And I'm sorry I didn't go right into it, into podiatry and into everything else that the elderly need. I read a report and it broke my heart. And I'm aware of a few people that are not getting nutritious food. Whatever way we go about this, we have an organisation in Ashfield that is never mentioned in our newsletters that people could access. I learned this word by mouth, an organisation that helps people and takes patients to hospitals, transports them when the partner cannot do it. That is not in our newsletters. Not the people that are not getting nutrition, they're elderly or they're disabled. They don't use the council website. We get glossy quarterly reports going out, telling us about dances and telling us about everything else, but not one of the reports gives to our residents information, to our residents that don't use the internet, to our residents that don't know what to do. Now, I apologise for putting up this motion because it's been picked to absolute pieces. It started the dialogue and it maybe woke up that people are not getting nutrition. The meals, and we're giving away thousands and thousands of dollars to different organisations. It's okay to say we've got food places where people can go and pick up food. Canned food is not good for vulnerable people. I apologise for bringing this motion up. Everyone's got so much to say but they have no answers and they didn't raise it. Do they speak to people? Do they go out in the electorate and see what's needed out there? Do they care about the vulnerable? I do. When I read that, it broke my heart. My late mother lived with my sister, and she made sure that my mother had the best food in the world. Look at the people that are missing out that don't have families.
Councillor Passos, you'll have to wind up.
I'm already wound up.
Thanks, Councillor Passos. Okay, councillors,
No truer word was said.
Thank you, Councillor Drury. So, councillors, the motion now reads that council widely advertises, Catherine, council widely advertises the availability of Meals on Wheels to residents in the local government area. I'll now put that. All those in favour with that motion, please raise your hand. So that's Porteous, Stamalos, Hesse, Drury.
What are you on to?
Who's the steer?
Sorry, I'm not in favour.
Okay, sorry.
I didn't know you'd be home.
Remove Drury.
Caroline, you're not on mute, Caroline.
Councillor Skander, are you for that? No? Yes, no? Yes, okay. Councillor Rossetti? Not you there? You're for? Okay, thank you. Councillor Kiat is for. Okay, all those against, please raise your hand. So McKenna against, Drury against, Lockie against. That's it. So that's 10 for and 3 against. Thanks, councillor. So that's carried. Councillors, the next item is Councillor Drury's motion Thrive by 5. So that's moved by Councillor Drury. Do we have a seconder for that? That's seconded by Councillor Lockie. Councillor Drury, do you want to speak to that motion?
Reserve.
Thank you. Councillor Lockie, did you want to speak to that motion? No. Are there any other councillors that want to speak to this motion? Otherwise, I'll go to Councillor Drury for his right of reply.
No need.
No? Okay, I'll now put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's Lockie, Porteous, Hesse, Drury, Stamalos, Cruz. Councillor Mackerel, yes. McKenna, Rossetti, Kiat, yes. Iskander, Steer. Councillor Passos, are you voting for that motion?
Well, I haven't got enough information on this. It's just...
Okay, so Councillor... Okay, so that's against? You voting against, Councillor Passos?
No, I abstain.
Okay, so Councillor Passos is abstaining, which is effectively voting against. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Progress Pride flag, which is Councillor Lockie's motion. Councillor Lockie, you have a small amendment to that, is that right?
I do. Thanks,
And that's seconded by Councillor McKenna, is that right?
Yes. Thank you. Yes, I'd just like to move it with an additional point to note that Council's LGBTIQ working group has expressed its support for this change. Apart from that, and I'd like to thank them again for their feedback and support on that. Apart from that, it's a straightforward motion and I commend it to you.
Thanks, Councillor Lockie. Councillor McKenna, did you want to speak to this motion?
No.
Okay. Are there any other councillors that want to speak to this motion? Okay, so just checking. Yep. So councillors, I'll now go to Councillor Lockie for her right of reply. Councillor Lockie?
No need.
You waive your right of reply, thank you. So councillors, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So I believe that is unanimous. Councillor Rossetti, are you voting for that? No?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Okay, and so that's unanimous with Councillor Passos has left the room, I believe. Yes. So Councillor Passos is absent for that vote. All right, councillors, the next item is item mental health, which has become item 15. And that's Councillor Drury's motion. So do we have a seconder for this item? That's seconded by Councillor McKenna. Councillor Drury, did you want to speak to this item?
Suffice to say that I hope I get full support from councillors on this important issue. October was Mental Health Month, and I think there's a practical step that we can take going forward in the second item.
Thank you. Councillor McKenna, did you want to speak to this item?
No.
Okay. Is there any other councillor that wanted to speak to this item?
Yes, I would.
Please go ahead, Councillor Passos.
On point 2, I'd like to know what 5,000 is going to do, and how do we recognise residents that are at risk? How is $5,000 going to recognise that what risk our residents are at? Are they going to assess our residents? Is that only going to cost $5,000?
So I think it's contained in the motion itself, how that money is going to be sent, Councillor Passos. So I'll just take that as a rhetorical question.
No, I'm speaking on it. It's not rhetorical.
Well, it's answered in the question. It's answered in the motion itself.
Well, a reputable organisation, what is this reputable organisation going to do? How are they going to assess this?
Can I just, a minute taker, I'm taking this as being the speech. This is not a question.
No, it's a question, well, and I'm also speaking to it.
It's a rhetorical question because it's already answered in the motion.
No, it doesn't. How is this going to work? I need to know, how is this reputable organisation for the cost of $5,000 going to assess our residents' mental health? And to spot the early signs?
I think it's captured in the motion, Councillor Passos.
No, excuse me, Mayor, I really would like an answer from the officers that they're better equipped to spot the early signs of ill health and help link residents in need of appropriate services. How is this going to assess our residents that need a link and we send them on to the appropriate services? I cannot vote for this.
Okay.
This is really, I'm afraid to say, this is making, this mental health is very serious. And support this motion.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Passos. Is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item? Otherwise, I'll go back to Councillor Drury for a right of reply.
Just to be abundantly clear, the $5,000 is to offer training to volunteers, people in the non-government sector and residents if they want, such that they can provide things like mental health first aid so that they're better equipped to spot and help support and link people with mental health problems to appropriate services. I urge all who understand what I'm talking about to vote for the motion.
Thanks, Councillor Drury. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor McKenna, are you there? Or
just getting a cup of tea.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I believe that's everybody, all those against. So that's everybody in favour with Councillor Passos against. Okay, thank you, councillors. The next item on the agenda is the implementation of Inner West Council Public Toilet Strategy. Councillor Steer, do we have a seconder for that? Do we have a second for Councillor Steer's motion? That's seconded.
Well, I hope I have
a second.
Yes, second.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you. I'm going to speak very, very briefly on this because I promised that I wouldn't speak much. So what I'm going to say is this is my very last word on toilets, which I seem to have been talking about a lot this year. And the reason for that is because the public toilet strategy, which we resolved last year, does not appear to have been implemented. Some of it is quite out of date already. For example, it suggested in Stanmore, Ward Council rents the railway building at Stanmore Station, which has been empty for a long time but has now just been leased. And so I don't know whether it's been leased to council or anybody else, but that really is just an example of the problems with the strategy. Camperdown Memorial Rest Park toilet, of course, has been going on since 2018, and hopefully will be built next year, and I will be very happy to see that, but it does need to be given priority. We've also seen from time to time other councillors and staff bring motions about particular toilets that need fixing or upgrading or what have you, and that's all very well, but what it means is there hasn't been an overall application of an overall strategy for the benefit of all the toilets in the public area. We've only just voted for tonight for a pilot project for providing free period products for people, but we need the toilets in public places to put them in. So I hope that everybody will vote for this tonight, and I hope that the new council will be able to take this and run with it, and we can get the toilets that we deserve for the Inner West. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Steer. Councillor Lockie, did you want to speak to this item? No? Okay, are there any other councillors that want to speak to this item? Councillor Macri, please go ahead.
Chair, just a question through to the staff. I know there was a public toilet strategy, so what happened? Where was the issue where it has failed to deliver or produce the desired outcome?
Okay, so I'll put that to the General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I'm unaware that it's failed to produce. There was obviously an issue with the Camperdown toilet strategy, but to me, there should be no reason why every project that was listed in there isn't in the forward look for capital works program. I'm happy to clarify that and bring that back to the councillors, but my understanding is they should be prioritised as they've been listed in the thing and should be listed in the capital works program. I don't know if you've got anything to add, Stuart.
Yeah, look, we've got a listing of the current arrangements. Now we've got five of those sites in this current year will either be delivered or commenced the design. So we're looking obviously Camperdown Memorial Rest, Pioneers Memorial Park. We've got some toilets at Leichhardt Oval, Gladstone Park for delivery in 23, and then also Mahoney Reserve. So they're five we've got happening right now. In the 4-year program, there's another 13 listed. So a couple of those are part of new builds and 11 refurbs. And then beyond that, we're looking at some additional public toilets that could be part of some of the sports amenity projects that we've got scheduled. So, you know, Steel Park, Leichhardt number 2, Birchgrove Park as examples. There's another 8 of those. So that's in that sort of period from now through till 24, 25. We're looking at.
Thanks very much for that. Councillor Macri, did you want to speak to this item?
Yeah, I'm happy to support it per se at the moment. Just my concern is the public toilet strategy. They seem to be costing us a lot of money when we look at there's those reports about the toilet in Camperdown Oval in the paper that we can't seem to build a toilet for $500,000. And I remember going back in the old days with Richard Sage, one of the parks managers there. And probably the community's a bit puzzled why Marston can build them a 2-storey, 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom, double garage with an alfresco and air conditioning and granite bench for $349,000, and we can't seem to build a public toilet for $500,000. Is there something elaborate in the design of the toilets? Are we going for funky architectural designs? Is that causing the budgets to blow out on these projects, or should we be actually trying to maximise and get as many toilets in as we can with a more sort of simplistic sort of design that is more affordable to build and that can be replicated in different parks? I suppose that's a question.
You want to ask that as a question to the relevant officer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, obviously Camperdown Parks had a bit of a checkered history, but I've just clarified that one. The budget for Camperdown, that particular design wasn't able to be delivered for the budget that we had, so the $500,000 that we've allocated. So that's why we've had to head down the path of revisiting that one. And as you're aware, we've now engaged our architects and we're into the concept design for that. And we're very much focused on making sure our designs are designed to fit our budget aspirations and allocations that we've got for these toilet blocks moving forward. We understand that at times there is an architectural desire with some of those sites, and that's not unreasonable depending where it is, but we do need to make sure that we're getting maximum value for money on these facilities. So that is our intention going forward, absolutely.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I just think,
Councillor Macri, have you finished?
I just want to say, I just think as a guide rule, if we can have toilet paper in there clean, I think that should be the guiding rule for the toilets. Thank you.
What was that? Toilet paper?
It's not a silly ask. Sure.
Pink toilet paper, please.
May I just seek a quick clarification, Mayor?
Yeah, okay, please.
Councillor Steer, just realised looking at this motion, because it's been on the books a while now, point 3, the date in there needs to be amended.
Yes, I agree.
That will need to be the 23rd of November. Let's see.
23rd of November. Yes, thank you. I accept that amendment.
Okay, so I've got did any other councillor want to speak on this item?
Yes, I said I would like to speak.
Oh, okay, Councillor Passes.
Question from Councillor Lockie.
Please go ahead, Councillor Passes.
Well, I cannot understand how we can have a concept and then not have the money to do it. I don't know how this works. And as far as I'm concerned, I have to agree with Councillor Macri. Now, Summer Hill is a conservation area. Most of the buildings are heritage, but we just had an ordinary toilet put in and with some timber put around it so we can fit in with the area. I cannot see why it's so problematic to put in toilets. They have to be modern, they have to be stainless steel, they have to have certain lighting, as I've been told, seeing that I'm very professional on public toilets. So drug dealers cannot find veins, is what I was told, to go in and use it to shoot up drugs. This is not problematic. This is a public amenity that we have there for the residents, that they can use, a basic requirement that can be hosed out, cleaned out, move on, and let's move to the next area that needs it. This has been an embarrassment. And I'm afraid to say councillors would not have known about this if that guy did not contact the newspapers. So I am very concerned that we're saying we could not build that building for $500,000. Well, who planned the building? Doesn't the architect get together? Don't we discuss this? Then we do costings. What is going on here? Why didn't we call SS Rock to help? They're so great. What is the problem here? Again, there are big problems. I had a motion for the Auditor General to look in at the council to see if we can make it better, and I couldn't even get a seconder.
Thank you, Councillor Passes. Is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item? Otherwise, I'll go to Councillor Steer for a right of reply. Councillor Steer?
I don't think I need to reply. I think everybody has said the things that need to be said, and I thank the officer for the information that we have finally heard today. And I hope that there will be progress next year. And I have to say I agree with the comments of Councillor Passes. as to the budget, and that's why I put that item in there, item 4 in there, because that may need to be revisited in the future. Anyway, I'm not going to talk anymore. I hope everyone votes for this motion, and thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Steer. Dare I say that you've flushed out the answer? That's a joke. Sorry.
Oh dear. Oh.
It must be getting late.
It's a stinker.
Michelle.
Okay, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And Councillor Rossetti, I can't see you. Are you in favour? Councillor Rossetti, you're not there? Okay. And Councillor Passis, are you there? Okay, so I think that's everybody in favour with anybody against, voting against?
I think we can hear Councillor Rossetti saying yes in the background. So
I can't see her.
no, I can hear her.
Councillor Rossetti, are you voting for or against? No, I think we're going to have to say absent. Councillor Passis, were you for or against? You're for? Is that correct? Yes, okay. Councillor Passis is for. And Councillor Rossetti is absent? I can see a hand, but disappeared. Okay, I think we'll have to record Councillor Rossetti as absent. Okay, so that should be 12 for and 1 absent. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, councillors, the next item is, this is another one from Councillor Byrne, the Gladstone Park repairs. Look, I'm happy to move that instead of Councillor Byrne, unless one of his colleagues wants to move it. Okay, so I've moved it, seconded Drury. I don't need to speak to it. I've already consulted with the council staff and it's already happening. Did you want to speak to it, Councillor Drury?
No.
No. Is there any other councillor that want to speak to this item?
Yeah, look, I'm just looking at those comments, and if
Did
that
you want to speak to
comment
it, Councillor De Cruz? Please go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just looking at those comments, and I believe this motion's been carried out from a month ago.
It is.
So from a month ago, the work should be finished. Is that the case?
That'd be very fast. Is the point being?
Has the work been finished?
You want to ask if the work's been finished, so I'll put that to the General Manager.
Thanks, thanks, Madam Mayor. No, if you noticed that it was a notice of motion from last week's meeting, so I know the works haven't been finished yet. It was carried over. That was carried over from the 26th of October.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, they were already happening before the motion went up, but yeah. Okay, any other councillors want to speak to this item? Otherwise, I'll go to myself for a right of reply, and I'll waive my right of reply, and I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And I believe that's unanimous. Thanks, councillors. So we'll go to the next item, which is Councillor Macri and Councillor Stamos's item, Inner West Open Space, LEP. So that's moved by Councillor Macri, seconded by Councillor Stamos. Did you want to speak to it, Councillor Macri?
Just briefly, Chair, I think it's fairly self-explanatory. I don't think it's controversial, but I think we need to, with so many coming in, we need to inform them of the situation we're in. And, you know, during COVID, our parks were getting smashed. Every bit of open space, every blade of grass was probably getting trod on 3,000 times a day, you know, and I'd coming to work or going home from work, I'd see down along Cooks River, it was packed. Now that everyone's gone back to work, it's sort of gone back to normal a little bit, but that doesn't sort of stop the ability for us, well, it doesn't relinquish the need for us to actually address the issue that we're the second worst council for open space. We suffer from a lack of it. And I think it can deliver a lot of benefits if we have a mechanism there which identifies where we can increase the open space, because we plan strategically. We can then go to the state government and ask them for funding help us fund these things, because we could have something ready to go. All it needs is money. And providing open space today is very expensive, because you must buy land, you must knock something down. There is no new land coming. So I just think it's fairly self-explanatory, and I hope councillors all support it.
Thanks, Councillor Macri. Councillor Stamoulis, did you want to speak to this item?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Look, as Councillor Macri has pointed out, the need for increased open space is vital in the inner west. Currently, we have a huge 804 people per hectare of our open space. That's far beyond, that's double most Sydney councils. And we need a plan, I think, for increasing this. And additionally, open space is the great equaliser. It doesn't matter what income you have living in our municipality. Everybody can access open space for recreation, for picnics, for walks, whatever it might be. It's something that is desperately needed by every member of our community. And I think council needs to get a plan together so that we're preparing ourselves for the certainly very high densities that we have and the increasing densities and use of our open space. So we do need to get this plan together as a matter of priority. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Stamoulis. Is there any other councillor that wants to speak?
Yes, I'd like.
Okay, Councillor Passes.
Yes, I'd like to speak. Hang on, what's going on with the computer?
Was all right. We can hear you and we can see you.
Oh, okay. Yes, this is a good motion, but I don't know where we're going to find this space. I would suggest first the council building at Petersham. That should be that should go, and the car park and that building should be made into open space. That area around Petersham is very bereft of open space. We're going to lose out financially, but when we're talking open space, we have to look at the areas that don't have it. Some areas are well catered for in our LGA and some are not. So how we're going to find the space, as I said, I've nominated one, but this could be something that we can look at and really stay on top of. It's COVID has proven this. But from what I see with our parks, we're reducing the open space we have. We're trying to fit too many things into areas where it was open space. We can't do this. We're taking over a lot of things the private enterprise does. And we can't be doing it. We've just got to leave open space as open space. So I will be voting for this motion. I don't know what the answer is, but we have to look what's obsolete, what needs too much funding to restore or to keep. Even if council loses out on the site at Petersham, in the long run, we win for the residents.
Thanks, Councillor Passes. Is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item? Otherwise, I'll go to Councillor Macri for a right of reply. Councillor Macri?
I think it speaks for itself, Chair. I don't think any of us will be in disagreement. We need some more open space, and we just need to have a plan to get it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Macri. Councillors, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's De Cruz, Porteous, Hosea, Drury, Macri, McKenna, Stamoulis, Passes, Steer, Lockie. Councillor Kiat, are you voting for that? The Skander. You voting for that? Yes. Councillor Kiat? Yes, okay. And just Rossetti, Miss Councillor Rossetti. Catherine, is Councillor Rossetti left the meeting?
Yes, she has left the meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, so in that case, that's unanimous. So that's 12 for unanimous. Right. Councillors, the next item we have on the agenda is Councillor Stamos's motion, Inner West Council Land and Property Register. Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second it.
That's seconded by Councillor Macri.
Yep.
Councillor Stamos, did you want to speak to this item?
Oh, look, just very briefly, Madam Mayor, this is simply to make sure that the Land and Property Register is a little bit more usable and user-friendly, particularly for councillors who may want to look at it and see what's happening with our major assets. And I know that our residents pop in from time to time, so it's just very much the basics of maintenance of the register and to rethink some of the summary indicators that we can readily use from that. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Councillor Stamos. Councillor Macri, did you want to speak to that? Okay. Any other councillors that want to speak to this item?
Could I just ask a question, please?
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm just a bit wondering about why it needs to be the format that can be copied and pasted. Why do we need that?
Okay. I probably need to go to the author for that. Councillor Stamlos, the reason?
Yeah. For those councillors who like getting in there doing spreadsheet analysis, it would be handy to have it in a flexible format. So those who want to do it, others, of course, won't be interested in doing that, but some of us do. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Any other questions you want to ask, Councillor McKenna?
No, I'm still. I wonder about the safety of that. We could end up with an issue like the City Council with things getting altered.
Okay.
Just the security of the documents is of my concern. So perhaps it's a question for the officers about security. Could we ask the General Manager, please?
Sure. So we'll put that question to the General Manager.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'll go to the Acting Director of Corporate.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Through you. There is a property register already located on Council's website, and that has a range of information from the site, the classification, whether that be community operational land, any agreement in place, the occupant, the date, the lease expiry, and so on. So I'm not sure what additional information would be required, but we can look at the format of that report to make sure that it's easily digestible.
So that doesn't answer my question about whether with an ability to copy and paste, would that be something that you could do, or would that impact security of the document?
To the Acting Director of Corporate.
Yes, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I don't believe the format would be comprise council at all. That could be easily done within its current format.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillors, did you want to speak to this item, Councillor McKenna? Okay. Councillors, any other councillor that wants to speak to this item? Otherwise, I'll go to Councillor Stamoulis for a right of reply.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, just to address that issue there, because I think it's an important question. I was sort of just using the generic copy and paste. That is, like, you would go into an ABS spreadsheet, you'd want to use their data, you'd copy their data, paste it to your spreadsheet, do some analysis, but you would never be able to change an ABS spreadsheet, the original document. You could simply copy and paste from it. So I hope that clarifies that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Stamos. Councillors, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. So it's Stamos, Lockie, Steer, Macri, McKenna, Drury, yes. De Cruz, Hesse, Steer, Kiat, Iskander. So Councillor Passis, are you there? So it looks like Councillor Passis is absent and Councillor Rosidi has retired from the meeting. So that's 11-4 and one is left the room. Okay. Councillors, the next item is my motion. It's about the H.J. Mahoney Oval and the Newtown Breakaways. You will remember that.
Seconded.
Sorry?
Seconded, Rochelle.
Oh, thanks, Councillor Hesse.
Do we need to talk about it?
I was just giving it its title. I was going to say, you will remember that we had some very eloquent speakers on this item. Therefore, I don't feel I need to address the item any further. And Councillor Hesse is seconding the item. Thank you, Councillor Hesse. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Hesse?
I agree with what you said.
Thank you. Is there any other councillor that would like to speak to this item? Councillor Macri, please go ahead. You're on mute, Councillor Macri.
Is that better?
That's better.
Yeah. It's probably one of the only councillors who grew up growing up and playing on Mahoney Reserve. I can attest to the Spartan nature of the change rooms. They're very harsh and unforgiving, and I don't think they'd really lend themselves to female sort of occupation. So I'm quite happy to support that and bring this item forward. And you're going to get a report next council. The staff's comment says they're currently in the process of the seasonal renovation program, Mahoney Reserve. So it fits in well with that. So it was getting done anyway. So I'm happy for that. It was part of the program works. So that's why I can support it.
Thanks, Councillor Macri. Any other councillor wants to speak on this item?
Madam Mayor?
Please go ahead, Councillor Stamalis.
Look, I'd just like to point out that this is very similar to Easton Park, whereby we've identified there's a real need to improve a ground, and obviously this has now moved into that category where it's very urgent to provide with the upgraded facilities. So this is what we do as a council. So we're a bit sort of inflexible with Easton Park, but it's great to see us being more flexible here. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Stamalis. Councillors, there's no more discussion on this item. Councillor Lockie, please go ahead.
I'd just like to address that point. I think this motion is different to the Easton Park one, because the action in point 1 about committing to the immediate rectification, staff have made it clear in their comments that work is now underway, and it is part of that. The other additional works, we are following the right process by seeking to get a report back on how that work could be done. So we are waiting for that advice before we commit to funding to works. Thanks.
I'm in full agreement. I'm in full agreement with that. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Stamalis. Okay, councillors, is there any other councillor that wants to speak on this item? Otherwise, I'll go to myself for right of reply, and I'll waive my right of reply. And I'll now put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's the Cruz, Porteous, Hesse, Drury, yep, Macri, McKenna, Stamalis, Passes, Steer, Lockie, Kiat. That's everybody. And yes, and Passes as well we've got. So Councillor Passes is back. So that should be, it's still 12. That's unanimous. Thanks, councillors. Councillors, the next item is actually an item from Councillor Byrne, the implementing of the government's outdoor dining initiatives in the Inner West.
Move that way.
So Councillor Drury is moving that. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Lockie is seconding that. Thank you, Councillor Lockie. Councillor Drury, do you want to speak to this item?
I think we all want to see if we can bring back some life to our suburbs. There's a way forward being suggested here by the New South Wales government.
Yep.
I think we should support this and get on with it.
Thanks, Councillor Drury. Councillor Lockie, did you want to speak to this item? No. Are there any other councillors that want to speak to this item?
Yes, I would. Please
go ahead, Councillor Passes.
I won't be supporting this motion because I'd like to know what funding has been allocated to support our small business. I know of 2 long-term shops in Asheville that have recently closed up, got rid of their stock and went home. I don't believe that this ad hoc type of thing to be expedited before an election when we don't look at who else needs help. What have we done for our small business? Not a thing. I cannot support this.
Thanks, Councillor Passes. Are there any other councillors that want to speak to this item? Otherwise, I'll go back to Councillor Drury for a right of reply. Councillor Drury.
Councillor, thank you, councillors. I suggest that Councillor Passes wants increased support for local business. For small business, she should talk to the New South Wales State Government, who made it their business to provide that and who have set this policy.
Thanks, Councillor Drury. Councillors, I'll now put this motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And all those against? So that's carried 11-1 with Councillor Passes against. Councillors, the next motion, and it's the last motion before we go into confidential session, is again Councillor Burns' motion, expediting live performance grants. Do I have a mover for that?
I'll move it.
That's moved by Councillor Lockie, seconded by Councillor Hesse. Councillor Lockie, would you like to speak to this motion?
No, the staff comment said it's already underway, so let's do it to it.
Councillor Hesse, did you want to speak to the motion?
I endorse what Councillor Lockie said.
Okay. Did any councillor want to speak to this motion? Otherwise, I'll go to Councillor Lockie for a right of reply. You're waiving your right of reply. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those against? So that's carried 11-1 with Councillor Passes against. Oh, councillors, we have one item to go, which is our in our supplementary agenda, and this is the Merrill Minute, which is also a confidential item as it involves tenders. So, councillors, I'm now going to move that we move into confidential session. Do I have a second of that? Seconded by Councillor Lockie. All those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. So, councillors, we'll just wait until our minute taker lets us know that we are in confidential session and the videotaping has been stopped.
Could we have a break?
This is our final item, Councillor Passes. You can have a long break after that.